Chapter 4, questions 3 and 4 are trying to get you to become familiar with the concept of groups. Those are the columns on the periodic table. And periods, those are the rows, horizontal rows on the periodic table. And also with general regions that tend to have the same behavior, so they share a name. They're sort of like states in a country. These general regions on the periodic table are sort of like states. So let's go through these one at a time. We want to find the symbol of this element. Now the element is in group 4A. That group is also called group 14 in period 2. Okay, so if you look at the top, the columns are the groups. We're looking for group 4A, and here it is. Notice that group is also 14. Those are just two names for the same thing. Say 14 would be like Florida, and 4A would be like the Sunshine State. They mean the same thing, just slightly different names. So this is the column we want to work with, 4A, and then we want to go down to period 2. Now the period numbers are listed over here. The periods are the rows. So period 2, 4A, and we have C there. So that would be the symbol of the element. You would write down a capital C, and that's standing for carbon, which is, depending on how the carbon atoms are smushed together, can either be pencil lead or diamond or coal. Interestingly, you can actually take a lump of coal, go into a laboratory, and squeeze the atoms together so that it turns into diamond. It's not even particularly expensive, so you could make inexpensive diamonds. The price of diamonds is so high because it's kept that way artificially. If scientists were allowed to just make diamonds at their will, diamonds could be relatively inexpensive, or at least less expensive than they are now. Okay, we want to find a noble gas in period 1. And so that noble gas, that's sort of the name of a state in our country analogy before. So if you notice, different regions have different names. For example, group 1 are the alkali metals. Group 2 are the alkaline earth metals. This valley area, where there's a dip in the periodic table, those are the transition elements. And then 7A, those are the halogens, and group 8A are the noble gases. So when they tell us that we want to deal with a noble gas, we're dealing with group 8A. It could also be called group 18. So we're looking in this column, or this group, and then we want also period 1. Remember, the period numbers are on this side, they're the rows. So period 1 crosses group 8A at helium. So the symbol you'd want to write down here is He, helium, and helium is used in MRI machines in hospitals to keep the magnets cold inside the MRI machine. Helium boils at around 1 Kelvin. That's 1 degree away from absolute zero. So it can get really, really cold, and you can see some of it here. It's the liquid in the ladle. The white stuff is actually the water in the air that, when it gets close to the helium, gets so cold that it turns into ice crystals. So the white stuff is not the helium, that's just water freezing in the air. But you can almost see the clear liquid there in the ladle. Okay, and we're looking, in this one, in C, we're looking for an alkali metal. That's a name for another state in period 3. So period 3, that's this one here. Periods are the rows. And then the alkali metals are group 1A. So group 1A, period 3, the symbol that you would write down as the answer for that is Na. Na was sodium. It's a soft metal you can cut with a butter knife. It explodes when it comes into contact with air. So it's often stored in an oil. Or else it will react with oxygen and form a coating that isn't as reactive. But notice the inside is just pure sodium, the outside is a sodium oxide that protects the inside after it reacts with oxygen. Alright, now we want to go to group 2A, which can also be called group 2, that's what the parentheses mean. Period 4, so group 2A, here we are, those are the columns. Period 4, that's right here, so those cross at calcium. So the symbol you'd write down is Ca, and it's this shiny metal here, it's calcium, and that metal is in all these different foods. In such small particles that we can't see them with our eyes, but that metal is present in almonds and cheese and beans and milk, etc. Okay, we want to find what element is in group 3A. That could also be called group 13, period 3. So group 3A, that's right here, 3A, and we want that to cross with period 3. So period 3, that's this row, the third row down, so 3A, and the one that's in both of those is aluminum, Al. So the symbol you'd write down would be Al. And we're pretty familiar with aluminum. It's used for aluminum foil or for some aluminum cooking dishes. So that's where you would have seen aluminum. Question 4 in chapter 4 is pretty much the same thing. We want to write down the symbol that is represented by each of these descriptions. So for the first one, it says an alkaline earth metal. That's, again, another description of one of those states in our country analogy. So an alkaline earth metal in period 2. Well, period 2 is this side right here. And if you notice, the alkaline earth metals are group 2A. So period 2 crosses the alkaline earth metals at beryllium. That's Be, beryllium. Beryllium is a pretty shiny metal. You can see it here. Okay, for B, we want to see what element is in group 5A, could also be called group 15, and period 3. So period 3, that's the row 3. Where does that cross column or group 5A? Group 5A is right here. Crosses it at phosphorus. So you'd write down the symbol capital P there. And phosphorus has 3 forms depending on how it's squeezed together: white, black, and red. The red form, which you can see here, is used in the tips of matches. C says a noble gas in period 4. A noble gas is, again, a region. Specifically, the noble gases are column 8A. They're called noble because they don't react with anything. They sort of just stand and watch the world go crazy while they quietly, calmly sit back and don't react. So that's why they're called noble, and they're all gases at room temperature, so they're noble gases. We want to go in column 8A, the noble gases, down to period 4. So 4 is this row here. You can go over. That crosses the noble gases at krypton. Krypton. So the symbol you'd want to write down for this description is Kr. Now krypton, a lot of the noble gases are invisible to the human eye, but what you can do is you can shoot electrons through them. So they would normally look just like clear gases, but if you shoot electrons through them, they get all excited and they start emitting light. And each noble gas emits a different color light. The color that krypton emits is this sort of ethereal sky blue. Okay, D. It says a halogen in period 5. So the halogens, that's another column. It's column 7A. You can see in the sort of right side of the periodic table. Column 7A, and that's what a halogen is. And then period 5, that's this row here. So where does that row meet the halogens? It meets the halogens at iodine. So the symbol you'd write down for this would be capital I. And iodine is a dark purple solid, could also be a liquid, and then it turns into a lighter purple gas. For E, you want to know the symbol that is in group 4A, could also be called group 14, and period 4. So period 4, that's this row here, period 4, and we want to know where that crosses group 4A. That crosses group 4A at germanium. So that's this Ge here, germanium, and that's what that metal looks like. So you can sort of find different elements as if you were playing Battleship. You know the row that it's in, that's the horizontal row that it's in, that's called a period. You know the vertical column it's in, that's the group, and that pinpoints where an element is. And the other thing you'd want to remember is that certain regions have names, because the atoms in those regions all share the same behavior. So the alkali metals, the alkaline earth metals, transition metals, halogens, and noble gases. So each of those descriptions contributes, lets you find an element faster on the periodic table.